The Babylonian Empire lasted from 605 BC to 539 BC, just 66 years. Daniel was taken into exile in Babylon sometime in the first year of this empire under King Nebuchadnezzar. He would serve under Nebuchadnezzar, his son Nabonides, and his grandson Belshazzar. The empire would fall to the combined forces of the Medes and Persians in the 12th year of Belshazzar's reign. This would complete the time that Judah and the Jewish people would serve the kings of Babylon. Daniel's vision of the future of Judah began in the first year of Belshazzar, the final ruler of the Babylonian Empire. Look at Daniel 7, verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and a vision in his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel would receive 4 visions in all, 2 before the fall of Babylon and 2 after the fall. Now, what does God reveal to Daniel in this first vision? I'm Dan Cathcart, and this is the Voice of the Prophets. Belshazzar was the last king of the Babylonian Empire. He served as regent for his father Nabonides when Nabonides was away with the army. The NKJV Study Bible states that Nabonides spent 10 years making war in Arabia. During this time, Belshazzar served as regent. The date of Belshazzar's first year cannot be stated precisely. However, since Nabonides appears to have spent at least 10 years in Arabia, and since Belshazzar reigned for Nabonides in Babylon during that time, a date of 550 BC for Belshazzar's first year cannot be far off. This date coincides with the inauguration of the Medo-Persian Empire under Cyrus, an occasion that may have prompted Daniel's vision. Using the date of 550 BC as the first year of Belshazzar's reign in the Babylonian Empire, we see that it would fall to the Medes and Persians just 9 years later. The 19th century theologian E.W. Bullinger, in the Companion Bible, places this vision just 2 years before the fall of Babylon. As the time of the fall of the Babylonian Empire approached, God began to reveal to Daniel what the future held for Judah. Daniel already knew that even though the time that Judah served Babylon would be ending when the 70 years prophesied by Jeremiah were complete, Judah would not be reestablished as an independent nation. Daniel's interpretation of the meaning of the image of Nebuchadnezzar's dream revealed that 4 more empires would arise that would control Jerusalem. These empires represented by the chest of silver, the belly of bronze, the legs of iron, and the feet of mixed iron and clay. With the destruction of Babylon on the horizon, Daniel was given a vision of 4 beasts. Daniel 7, 2 and 3. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The traditional understanding of the identity of these 4 beasts is that the first one represents Babylon, the second represents the Medo-Persian Empire, the third represents Rome, and the 4th empire is that of the Antichrist. Now, however, when Daniel receives this dream, Babylon is on the brink of destruction, and the Medo-Persian Empire had already risen and was threatening Babylon. Bullinger comments on the rise of these 4 beasts. These are not the 4 dominions of chapter 2. They stand up one after another, and each stands successively in the place of the other. These are to arise in the days of those last 10 kings of Daniel 2:44. The first beast and company of the 4 beasts cannot be Babylon, for this had already arisen and was within 2 years of its end. Daniel could not see that kingdom arise now. If the 4 beasts are not connected with Nebuchadnezzar's vision of the statue nearly 70 years earlier, perhaps it is connected to Daniel's other visions. In those visions, Daniel is given an up-close look at the four kingdoms that would rise out of the Greek Empire. So let's take a closer look at the four beasts and the circumstances under which they arise. The four winds of heaven stirred up the sea, out of which arose four beasts. These four beasts rose up at the same time in response to the winds of heaven. The Great Sea metaphorically refers to the Gentile nations as a whole. In Revelation, we read that the Lord holds back the winds of heaven until the angel seals the 144,000 servants of the Lord. Revelation 7, verse 1. After these things I saw four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, on the sea, or on any tree. Later in Revelation, we read about a beast that rises up from the sea. Revelation 13, 1 and 2. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on its horns 10 crowns, and on its heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like that of the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his powers, his throne, and great authority. This beast in Revelation has characteristics in common with each of the beasts in Daniel's vision. The first beast of Daniel's vision is like a lion, Daniel 7, verse 4. The first beast was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet, like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. The second beast was like a bear, Daniel 7, verse 5. And suddenly another beast, a second, like a bear. It was raised up on one side, and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said to it, Arise, devour much flesh. The third beast is like a leopard, Daniel 7, verse 6. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. The fourth beast is not described other than to say it had 10 horns, with another little horn growing among the horns, which plucked out 3 of the 10 horns, Daniel 7, 7 and 8. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were the eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. Notice the resemblance that each beast has with the beasts described in Revelation 13. Bullinger comments on this similarity. The beast of Revelation 13, 1 through 10, combines in himself all these resemblances. After Daniel sees these 4 beasts, the vision shifts, and he sees the Ancient of Days seated on his throne with other thrones around him. Daniel 7, 9 through 11. I watched till thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 thousands ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. I watched then because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking. I watched till the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. This is the day of judgment, specifically for the 4 beasts. The fourth beast continues to speak boasting words even before the throne of God. In spite of the boasts of this beast, it is slain in judgment. The three other beasts, as they stand before the Ancient of Days, have their kingdoms stripped away from them, but they continue to live even after the death of the fourth beast. Daniel 7, verse 12. As for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. Notice that these three beasts exist at the same time, and their lives were extended for an appointed period of time. It had a definite set endpoint. After judgment was pronounced on the four beasts, Daniel saw one like the Son of Man arrive on the clouds and approach the Ancient of Days. Daniel 7, 13 through 14. I was watching in the night vision, and behold, one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and kingdom. All the peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. While still engulfed in the vision, Daniel was deeply disturbed and did not understand what he was seeing. Daniel 7, verse 15. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was distressed within me, and the vision in my mind kept alarming me. Daniel did not have the same response to the dream of Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel understood and interpreted that dream, but he couldn't understand his own visions or its meaning. Bullinger comments on Daniel's response to his vision. Because he did not understand, therefore chapter 7 could not be identical with chapter 2, because he had interpreted that already to Nebuchadnezzar. Now, still within the vision, Daniel approached one of those who stood by the throne. Daniel 7, verse 16. I came near to one of those who stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. Now Daniel was told that the four beasts represented the four kingdoms which would rise out of the earth. Daniel 7, verse 17. These great beasts, which are four in number, are four kings who will arise from the earth. Now the grammatical structure indicates a future tense. The beasts will arise. Nebuchadnezzar, the head of gold in the image, had already fallen. Nebuchadnezzar had been dead for over 20 years. Again, Babylon was on the brink of destruction, and the Medo-Persian Empire had already arisen. These two kingdoms could not be seen as rising in the future. They already existed. No other clue is given to their identity. Now, it's interesting that they are not identified as kingdoms, but as kings. The Aramaic word translated as kings is melech, number 4430, meaning a king. This word is distinct from the word which indicates kingdom, which is makah, number 4437, meaning dominion or kingdom. Three of the kings will be stripped of their kingdom, while the fourth king is slain. A possible answer to the identity or prophetic pattern of these four beasts can be found in Daniel's other visions. In Daniel's next vision, just 2 years later, Daniel saw a goat that had one large horn broken and replaced by 4 horns. Daniel 8, 8 through 9. Therefore the male goat grew very great, but when he became strong, the large horn was broken, and in place of it 4 notable ones came up toward the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came a little horn, which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the glorious land. The interpretation of this vision is that the goat represents Greece. The 4 horns are the 4 parts that the kingdom is broken into. Now these 4 horns, like the 4 beasts, arise at the same time. Alexander the Great conquered the Medo-Persian Empire as part of his Greek Empire. At his death, his 4 generals split the kingdom. The northern portion went to General Seleucus. His portion of the Greek Empire extended to both the south and the east. These 4 generals could be the pattern of the 4 beasts of chapter 7. Not only do the 4 beasts arise at the same time as they do the 4 generals, but the 4 beasts are referred to together as being one kingdom, which the saints will eventually inherit. This is consistent with all the kingdoms coming from a single kingdom founded by Alexander the Great. Daniel 7, verse 18. But the saints of the highest one will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, for all the ages to come. The saints, or those God set apart for his own, would receive the kingdom taken away from the beast. Another possible understanding of the kingdom the saints will receive is that it refers to Judah and Israel. Daniel then asked about the fourth beast, which was more terrible than the other three. As Daniel watched the vision, the little horn of the fourth beast made war against the saints, those who have been set apart to God. Daniel 7, 21 and 22. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints and prevailing against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and a judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High, and the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. Again, this is consistent with the beast described in Revelation who makes war with the saints. Revelation 13, verse 7. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority was given to him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. This description also fits the policies of the kingdom founded by General Seleucus. This is especially true of Antiochus Epiphanes IV, who forced the priests of Jehovah to sacrifice swine on the altar of God. They placed an image of Zeus in the holy place of the temple, banned circumcision, observance of the Sabbath, and possession of a Torah scroll. Let's go over to 1 Maccabees 1, 45 through 51. The king also sent instructions by messenger to Jerusalem and the towns of Judah, directing them to adopt customs foreign to the country, banning holocausts, sacrifices, and libations from the sanctuary, profaning Sabbaths and feasts, defiling the sanctuary and sacred ministers, building altars, precincts, and shrines for idols, sacrificing pigs and unclean beasts, leaving their sons uncircumcised, and prostituting themselves to all kinds of impurity and abominations, so that they should forget the law and revoke all observance of it. The books of Maccabees describe this war against the saints. Antiochus and the great Seleucid army is eventually driven out of Israel under the leadership of the priest Judah Maccabee, or Judah the Hammer. Although the prophetic pattern of four beasts may be the four parts of the Greek Empire, with the Seleucid Empire representing the fourth beast, which were more terrible than the rest, the ultimate fulfillment of this prophecy is yet to come. 10 kings will arise out of this fourth beast, followed by another king who will topple 3 of the 10 kings. Now, this is the king who will make war against the saints in the pattern of King Antiochus IV of the Seleucus, or Daniel 7, verse 25. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall prosecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time. At the end of that time, this king will be judged in the court of heaven, presided over by the Ancient of Days. Daniel 7, 26 through 27. But the court shall be seated, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and destroy it forever. Then the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Daniel's response to this vision and interpretation was strong. He was troubled, which would be understandable if he was allowed to see even a small portion of what Antiochus IV would do to the residents of Judah, and especially those in Jerusalem. Look at Daniel 7, verse 28. This is the end of the account. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly troubled me, and my countenance changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. Now, in this vision, God revealed that 4 kingdoms would arise, one of which would make war against God's people, those he set apart for himself. These are probably the ones Jeremiah referred to as the good figs, who were sheltered in Babylon and then returned to the land. One of the kings of this empire would especially be harsh and would face judgment by the Ancient of Days. As we continue to study Daniel's vision, we will see further details about these four beasts, especially that of the fourth beast. So stay tuned. I'm Dan Cathcart for Moed Ministries International. Shalom and be blessed.